Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin and I will be your host. So today I'm looking at the Bitcoin chart and I'd like to discuss a very pertinent question. Are we at the bottom or is there more to go? And if so, is it a lot more, a little more? So I am going to try to answer that question from a fractal and pattern point of view. So I'm going to analyze the structures that we have going on right now and compare them to some other ones in the past and see if we can come up with a couple different potential possibilities that are in play. Before we do that, I'd like to point out that I am not a financial advisor, so anything I present here should not be construed as investment advice or financial advice. That would be wrong. All right, let's delve in. So, if you've watched my previous video, you'll know the different structural patterns that present themselves in Bitcoin bear markets. In my previous video, I did an in-depth analysis of the declining structures in Bitcoin, and I present a case that there are two fundamental corrective patterns that play out in Bitcoin, and I call them pattern A and pattern B. So pattern A at the bottom does a V bottom, pattern B does a bounce. They both have three waves down that bring it to that capitulation point, and I believe that we are currently experiencing a pattern B correction. So I recommend you go back and watch that video if you haven't watched it yet, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I go through the whole entire history of Bitcoin and examine each corrective structure. All right, moving on. So this is a pattern B. It will end in a bounce. Are we at that point yet? Is this the beginning of that bounce? Well, I don't believe so. And here's my long and short of it. I believe we are working on the three waves down. So this is wave one, this is wave two, and we potentially are starting on wave three. There's a counter argument to that. This has an intermediate low right here, wave one or bounce one. So this one right here has this. Is this the same as this? So wave one has an intermediate and then a final capitulation point. Wave two, intermediate, going down to a final capitulation point. That is a possibility. Now, these intermediate fractals or lows here don't always show up. They're random, so I can't tell you definitively. But I personally, at this point in time, I lean to this is pattern, or this is wave two. This is wave one. This is wave two. I'd like to point out one potential pattern at play, and before, to do that, I'd like to go back to another pattern B that took place after the 2013 bull run in Bitcoin, and that's this right here. Within this corrective wave down, these corrective wave downs. So the first wave ends here. This is the capitulation point. From there, it does a bounce. It does another bounce, and finally a third bounce. And from that third bounce, the next decline that brings it to the bottom or the capitulation point of wave two. And then on the wave three, we see a bounce, a second bounce, which is the highest one, just like here. Bounce one, bounce two. So bounce one, bounce two, which is the peak. And then a third bounce, which from here, it's not as high. From here, the slide begins down to the capitulation point where the final distinctive bounce that defines the B pattern takes place. So we see a trend there, a theme, and this took place from the 2013 peak down to 2015 where it completed that bounce. So let's go back to where we are today. So as you can see, we have the top here. So it comes down, bounce one, and then at this capitulation point, we have essentially three bounces. One, right here. Two, Now this is split into two, but I still count it as one bounce, and you'll see this theme again. So, and then it goes three. This time, this is different from the last one that I showed you, the last corrective structure. This one wasn't as high. On this one, it's higher. So you have three bounces. This time, the last one's the highest one, and from there, it goes down to the next capitulation point. So here, we also have two bounce, and that you see that split. Just like we saw here on bounce two, that split is there. Now, are we at this point right here, and the next, and from here, we're going to go back up, make the highest point, the peak of this little pattern, and then from there, the decline will come down to the capitulation point. That, I can't say with certainty that that's what's going to happen, but I believe there's a good chance we do that. Now, so that's one possibility. The other possibility is if you take that corrective structure, that B pattern structure we just looked at from 2013, and you place it on here, you see that it actually kind of matches, and you can move it around and you'll see that it lines up for the most part. Each part matches for the most part with the other parts, even over here, but I'm going to focus on this part. So here we have this one bounce, two bounce, and then this third one where it wasn't quite as high. This could be another situation, and down to the capitulation point. And this is another possibility too. So if you go through the corrective structures that are B's, you have a range of a percentage drop, and on the high side, the most drastic was 90 something percent. I think one is like 70%, and I believe just the scale of what's happening here, I think a 70% drop, or 70-ish in the 70s, is something that could be in the cards. That, say you brought it down to here, that's a 72% decline, which would be historically normal, within the realm of possibility. It's happened in the past. Now, I can't say for certain that that's the case, but a 70% decline is possible. I personally believe that just from the historical evidence of these kind of structural patterns developing in a declining fractal, and they're each unique. Like the one that I showed you before, the third bounce wasn't as high. This time it's higher. I tend to lean to something like that happening, where we might go up again. I could be wrong, and it slides down. But regardless of whether it slides from here or it goes back up, I think just from the size of this overall structure, a 70% decline, which would bring us into the high teens, or 70-ish, or 20,000 is one possibility. Those are two different theories that could play out. And one other thing, fractals and patterns, there's no, like, this drop was this big, and it lines up, say, with a previous fractal. There's no guarantee that it's always going to be that size. Like, one part of the fractal can be bigger or smaller than it was in the past. That's what this is actually here. Could have an exaggerated drop here, or it could just kind of be in the overall kind of scale as the rest of this fractal. So there's always the possibility that you get an exaggerated part of a fractal that brings it much lower, or one that's much less and it doesn't make it go as low. But I think we are currently working on number 3, and number 3 can potentially bring Bitcoin into the 20s, upper teens, as far as price goes. I could be wrong. We'll see. Well, I hope this video was helpful. If you found it helpful, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. You can also hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified of new content I put out. I put out content on a regular basis. If you hit that bell, that notification bell, you'll be notified when I put out new content. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chart Historian. I also do regular updates there as well. Well, I hope you catch my next video. Have a great day and bye for now.